How does one deal with their own karma? See, this is a question that is quite tricky to deal with because a lot of people can't comprehend the complexity of what karma means. Just because of the stupid Abrahamic religion's system of punishment and reward that was, well, more or less invented by people to more or less control others and, ensure that they stick to the path so-called written in the books, or, well, interpreted, reinterpreted, adapted, and readapted to some people's egos, better said. Well, a lot of people think that karma is something that, well, is meant to specifically punish them. See, you have to understand, karma, you can consider it like the experience in a way you gain in a video game in order to level up. This is a far-fetched definition of it, but at least to try to make people understand. See, in this world, when I was young, I knew that there is something beyond energy, okay? Something that allows energy to stay in the fixed structures that it has. See, when you see people that talk to you about energy in general, those are typically very shallow people because most likely they don't know shit about what they talk. In some cases, they know exactly what they talk, but they can't go into too many details because you don't want to drown people into details, especially beginners. See, you may not believe in karma and the such, but it will always do its own influence. One has to understand energy is not just energy, because people tell you that energy is energy, everything is energy. Your body is energy, obviously, the air you breathe is energy, and the water that you drink is also energy. But each of those is a different information. That is the most important thing people have to understand. Energy is not just energy, it is information. That information, it enters your body, it leaves your body, it has a certain influence within you. That is why water has a certain influence within you. If you drink water hastily, it will have a certain influence on you. If you drink water calmly, it will have a different influence. If you eat hastily, it will have a different influence on you than if you eat it calmly, right? And also a different influence when you accept it, let's say, with gratitude and such. A lot of people kind of have forgotten that gratitude actually exists. When people embrace their misery too much, their comfort zone, everything is taken for granted. They don't have any reason to be thankful to something because most likely in comfort zone, people feel comfortable, so they will have this illusion that they already have everything that they need. And the only thing that they need is time to invest into new miseries and the such. See, karma is not something meant to punish you. Let's say one example. You meet someone in life. Most likely it happened already, but let's say you meet someone in life. You go through some romantic experiences. Maybe you don't fuck or things like that. You just cuddle and the such, but you invest emotionally at least a bit one into the other. Say you break up and you don't see one another for 10 years. While you've been seeing one another, most likely you've been fantasizing something this or something that, and you know, slowly and surely, you created a certain momentum. By thinking about the same thing again and again, you literally created a certain momentum. That momentum is based on information that you have been recycling in your mind. Because people will tell you, well, your thoughts are energy. I don't fucking care if they are energy. Your thoughts are information. That is something one has to comprehend to the deepest level possible. Because once you know, once you feel that energy is information, it is no longer just energy. Because your thoughts are also energy. But each and every one of them has a different information. And that information has a certain stability. The more you think about something, the more stable it becomes. The more stable it becomes, in a way, it is more physical, it is more vibrant. So it means its cycle is much shorter. That is why certain thoughts will come back to your mind sooner than the others. That is how you know an obsession from a usual thought. A usual thought might pop up in your head every now and then, maybe once or twice per day, especially if it is a reminder, right? You wake up and you have to do certain chores, right? And the thought of doing those chores most likely will come to your mind sooner or later. When it simply comes to your mind and doesn't let you be, that's slowly and surely what's becoming an obsession. So you have to understand beyond all of these thoughts, energies, let's call them, and well, information. Well, beyond this information is what we may call as karma. It is that which holds things together, which allows them to live in a physical way. It is that which supports the information that the energy of those objects, thoughts, and the such is. Because your thoughts are also physical. Yes, they are physical, they are much less perceivable, they are much less tangible, one may say, because in the end you can take your mind as one and the same with the cyberspace. Your mental body is still physical, but it is not far away from the intangible world. But you have to understand when you got a headache because of overthinking, you can feel it is a different headache because your mental body is that which is actually hurting and it feels like it is burning. The more you overthink, you're literally frying that mental body that you have. It's like you're torturing a little being within you. And since you're used to dealing yourself pain because that's what you've most likely been programmed with ever since you were a child, you're going to enjoy that and you're going to let's say employ even more of your life energies into that. This means that you're literally building a software in your mind, right? So the more you rehearse something, the more you do something specifically and you invest emotionally into it, you're building a software inside your body that says, this is the rule of how I function, this is how I want to function. That is why manifestations will fail, because just saying yourself a new set of ideas is not ever going to work. You will see a lot of people buy meditations and the such. That is the most stupid thing you can do in most situations, because just saying yourself affirmations without the action and the energy involvement is not gonna do anything. You, let's say, dated some people, and let's say you didn't even have sex with them, but you still, let's say, 5 years passed and you're still thinking about those people, some of their fetishes, maybe a quote or two that they spoke. That energy is still live within you because you invested into them and they invested into you. It is an energy exchange, right? But don't treat it as an energy exchange. That is superficial. You have to understand, you have to treat it as an information exchange, because that information is technically what is telling you that happened. You took a bit of their information, which is now part of your system, as if it always has been. That is why they are always active within you. The more you will think about that, the more you will invest into that emotionally and mentally, the more you will, let's say, solidify that thought, and it will become more or less like a law. Not only will it constantly bug you, but it will also um, make you simply, let's say, attracted to the similar kinds of people. Haven't you noticed that when you go through like ignorant dating, you will kind of draw very, very similar minded people? Maybe they are different one from the other. Maybe they are, maybe some think and act completely different one from the other. But to those people who have dated hundreds of other people, especially women, if you are knowledgeable enough, or let's say if you remember things about the people that you've met, well, most likely you will see there are certain patterns within those, because those patterns are unconsciously guided, right? The karma that you have attracted from them needs to become so dense in a way. Like, don't take it as a punishment or a reward system. It will function in such a way that it will break you out of your comfort zone. You can only take karma as a guide, because it will do its work even if you don't believe in it. It doesn't matter whether you do or not, you are not exempt from it. If God Himself will incarnate into this world, He will live as a slave to karma as well. Maybe they will be like Jesus and they will have a certain awareness of the world. Having a certain awareness about karma is not going to make you exempt from it. You will still be a slave to it, because this is how this cosmos exists. That karma is what allows you to simply exist, what allows your physical body to stay the way it is. It is that which allows your molecules to stay bound one to the other the way they do, atoms to stay close and attracted one to the other the way they do. It is that which in a way, is the law that decides whether some atoms will combine together or they will simply pass one by the other. Whatever you call science is just the observing of these laws that influence the so-called matter, right? Because matter is nothing else but energy in the end. It is compacted energy. But beyond that energy, well, energy itself is, at a superficial level, it is information. It tells you something if you are knowledgeable enough, if you are wise enough, and especially if you are, let's say, open enough, right? Because when you look at a table and you see a certain hole in it, you will think that, oh, it's just a hole. That hole is literally a memory, right? It was printed there by a certain action. Maybe someone hit that table with an axe. Maybe it just broke because of, I don't know, it was kept in unfavorable conditions. That is a memory. That is information over there. If someone very sensitive touches the table, they may feel a few things or two. If you are very sensitive and you walk into a room, most likely you will feel the general vibe of that room, right? That is why very sensitive people, me included, they don't go to clubs. They don't go to people where there's a lot of dense information, right? If you have a pet and you take a look at those, dogs, for example, are very sensitive to that. You will see that dogs typically, when they sit idle and they sleep, they will usually pick some places, some specific places in your house, and they may tend to be the same exact spaces. Just like any other animal, they are just unconscious beings, but they are knowledgeable of the fact that they don't want to spend their time in a place where there is information bound or linked to someone else. Because no living animal naturally would want to mingle with others' energies and make their system even more convoluted. Because that is the problem with a lot of people. They invest emotionally in the wrong people, and this means they exchange their pains, their sufferings, their misaccomplishments. So the problem is now karma does its own thing. It always does its own thing. Don't take it as a punishment system. It will constantly do its thing, and it will do it again. It will draw you constantly to the wrong people. And if you remember, the more unconscious you are, the less powerful you seem. The more powerless you feel, right? Because karma will do its thing. The more unconscious you are, the more it will have an influence upon you. And you will feel there are those moments when something happens in your life, a certain cycle comes back into your life, and you literally feel as if you are possessed, right? That is karma's influence, right? Karma is not a god. Karma is not something that specifically targets you. It is just something that happens. It is just that in your perception, when those things happen to you, you have an impression that you're the only one suffering from those. Believe me, everyone actually has those things. When you feel that, there are those moments when you can call them karmic moments of the mind, when certain thoughts suddenly bubble up to the surface, and it's like you simply can't think anything else. These happen because you are reminded of certain unfixed things within you. You never seek to fix your karma, because if you try to fix your karma, the more you focus on that which you want to fix, the stronger you will make it, right? The more energy you bump into it, you dump into it, you make it more physical in a way. You make it stronger, the cycle becomes shorter, so it becomes an obsession, because it will no longer let your mind be. Then typically you will seek to build something to replace it. And when you do that, you're gonna build yet another obsession, which is gonna grow and live in contrast to the first. And this is how you fuck yourself up mentally big time. Yes? How you deal with karma is you just let it be. Because you will not be powerful to deal with it. If you are, let's say, a guru, someone who knows karma inside out, you will know that when something happens, you just let it pass. Because if you invest emotionally into it, it's like dragging it back with anchors. Because you have to understand, everything that is a cycle, imagine a circle, yes? You are in a fixed location and that circle simply moves, right? There is a point, let's say, when the circle begins, right? That is when the thought happens to you. Then the circle will keep moving. Sooner or later, that specific point will move through you again, yes? When it moves through you again, it means the cycle was complete. So the thought or obsession or the such comes back to your mind. Obsessions are very small circles. So the point, that point, which when it goes through you, it means the cycle will happen again. Well, since the circle is short, that point will come back to you quickly. The largest cycles, according to this solar system, are said to be around 12 years. That is why a lot of people may think that they are done with certain things in their life, but cycles will come back. That is why they are now in their 30s, and they may feel occasionally that they are thinking just like they were thinking when they were 18 or 20, right? Some of the silly actions they would take or silly thoughts, right? Those will simply go back to your mind again. All the cycles, everything you have invested into your life will come back to you sooner or later. The more you have invested into those, the more powerful they will feel. The only way out is to simply let those be. Maybe you will go through a self destructive behavior again. Just do it in a way, not because you must, but because you will most likely feel so overwhelmed by that, you will not be able to react. And if you react, you're gonna most likely create even more momentum that will create more or less another obsession. Yes? And you know what happens when there are two obsessions. Yes, one will haunt you and cripple you, and the other one will come back and will try to haunt you as well. But depending on which you give into, well, typically it's hard to deal with one obsession. Once you have several, it's gonna be even harder. So the point is, you will feel ashamed that you failed and you bumped into your first obsession. Now you're gonna feel obsessed with trying to dodge the first obsession in the first place, and you're gonna invest your energy in both of those. This will tire you and you will feel so useless and powerless, right? That is why when something happens, when karma comes back to you, as they say, just welcome it with open arms. You will see it is so much better if you do not invest into those. Some people have obsessions with masturbation, let's say. Some people have obsessions with lying, or some people have obsessions with not doing anything. When these things come back at you, just do what you are prompted to, because in a way, it's gonna be a painful lesson yet again. You don't have to treat it with shame or guilt. It is just reminding you constantly that something is not fixed. If you go through it sufficiently, it will become so peaceful that you will actually try to escape it. The only way you escape it is by seeking answers. Go online, find answers as to why certain things simply repeat. The point is, in time, they will most likely wake you up from your sleep and they will repeat in your sleep. One has to realize the fact that when they happen, when these happen, it is preferable that you don't react emotionally. You just go through those and think about not doing those. If you can, just cancel them slowly while they are going on. Because let's say a masturbation obsession, a lot of people are sexed up by society because, well, you've got, scantily dressed women, LGBT stuff, all sorts of things that can cuddle people's fancies in movies, video games, and the such, right? They are powerful hooks. So when that obsession comes back to you, try, for example, you know, slowing it down. And you will see slowly and surely, if you keep practicing this, you will slowly and surely replace your karmic structure. Because karma functions based on law. What you have been repeating is the law. You said, this is the way I want to function. This is the way I want to live life. So the life forces within you simply directed everything they have into that. That is why it feels so overwhelming to try to leave that so-called obsession, right? Try to simply, well, pun intended, edge it in a way, but don't force it ever. You will most likely have to go 1,000 times through that, but slowly and surely, while these obsessions happen, if you don't invest into those, if you don't feel guilty or shameful of the such, like obsessively, right? You will slowly have them dwindle because a lot of people end up with what I call multiple obsessions. Yes, because they go through that which they don't like, and then it's like it becomes an obsession to also feel ashamed and guilty of what you have gone through. The mind is a very complex thing, and it can easily screw with people, especially the more ignorant they are. Hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You're appreciated, take care, enjoy life, and this being said, Ferenc on board signing out.